AITA for exposing my son after he said I didn't understand his world? I'm Alexandria, 56, and I raised Marcus by myself from the time he was small enough to fall asleep with one hand wrapped around my thumb. I still keep a shoebox full of his old birthday cards, school pictures, and the little notes he used to leave on the fridge when he wanted pancakes on Saturday mornings. For years, I thought the hardest part of being a single mother was making sure he never felt the weight of what I carried. I was wrong. The hardest part was sitting across from the man he became and realizing he wanted the world to believe he had carried himself. Marcus was always bright. Not in the loud way some kids are, where everyone around them has to clap every time they breathe. He was quiet, watchful, focused. He could sit with a book for hours, his little brow folded like he was negotiating with the words on the page. When he was young, he used to leave notes on the fridge in crooked handwriting. Can we have pancakes? Don't forget picture day. I love you, Mom. I kept everyone I found. Not because I thought he owed me anything for loving him, but because those scraps of paper felt like proof that we had made something good out of years that were not always easy. I never needed Marcus to worship me for raising him. I didn't want a medal. I didn't want speeches. I just hoped that when he became someone, he would remember he had been loved before anyone impressive knew his name. For a long time he did. When he got accepted into difficult programs, when he won awards, when he received invitations to events with linen napkins and printed place cards, I was the first person he called. He would say, "Mom, you won't believe this." And I would sit down before he even finished because I wanted to hear every word. Every time someone called him impressive, I felt proud enough to forget how tired I had been. Then Caroline came into his life. First, I liked her. She was polite, pretty careful with her words. She brought flowers the first time she came over and complimented the framed photo of Marcus from one of his graduations. She told me, "You must be so proud of him." And I remember smiling because that was the easiest question in the world. "I am," I said. "More than he probably wants to hear." Marcus laughed, but there was a tightness in it. That was the first small thing I noticed. After that, the small things kept coming. If I told an old story, he would cut in before I got to the end. "Mom, you don't have to bring up the hard years every time." I would blink at him and say, "I wasn't bringing them up, Marcus. I was remembering us." If I wore something simple to meet him, he would look me over too quickly and say, "You have that other purse, right? The nicer one." Once, when I asked whether Caroline's parents would be at a family dinner, he hesitated and said, "They're just particular." Not in a bad way. They're used to things being a certain standard. "A certain standard?" I asked. He sighed, already tired of explaining me to myself. "Mom, please don't make it a thing." That became his favorite phrase. Don't make it a thing. Don't tell that story. Don't mention money. Don't bring up old stuff. Keep it light. Keep it simple. The first time I met Caroline's parents, Evelyn and Richard, I understood what Marcus had been trying to manage. They were not rude in a way anyone could point to. That would have been easier. Evelyn smiled like she had practiced in a mirror and spoke gently, as if every sentence had been wrapped in tissue paper. "It must be wonderful," she said, "watching Marcus rise above such humble beginnings." I looked at her for a second longer than she expected. "Humble doesn't mean empty," I said. Her smile paused, then returned smaller. Richard was calmer but no warmer. He asked Marcus questions about investments, future plans, and financial discipline, then turned to me with the kind of friendliness people use when they are trying to measure you without getting caught. "Marcus strikes me as a young man who built himself from the ground up," he said. "He worked hard," I said. Richard nodded. "That says a lot. Separating yourself from your circumstances can be important." Marcus did not look at me. Caroline touched his arm under the table like she was calming him down, though I had not raised my voice. On the ride home, Marcus called me before I even got my shoes off. "Mom, that comment to Evelyn was unnecessary." "What comment?" "The humble thing." She said humble beginnings like it was a stain. She didn't mean it like that. How did she mean it? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You don't understand how these people talk." These people. I remember standing in my kitchen, still holding my keys, staring at the dark window over the sink. For a second, I wanted to ask him which people I belonged to, but I heard the old Marcus in my head, The boy asking for pancakes and I swallowed it. I'll try harder next time, I said. That was the problem. I kept trying harder. When Marcus got engaged to Caroline, he called me after it had already happened. Not before. Not even right after. He waited until the next afternoon, and I could hear voices in the background. She said yes, he told me. I sat down on the edge of my bed. Oh, Marcus, I said. That's wonderful. He sounded relieved but rushed. We're going to plan something tasteful. Not huge but nice. I'm happy for you. And Mom. Yes. I just need you to trust me with how we handle things. I knew what that meant. It meant he wanted my help without my fingerprints on the story. Still, when he asked me later about contributing to the wedding, I did not say no. I asked for numbers. I asked what they needed. I told myself that parents helped with weddings. I told myself that money was just money. I told myself that if I gave with love, it did not matter whether anyone applauded. Diane told me I was lying to myself. Diane has known me long enough to say things other people only think. One night, after Marcus had sent me a spreadsheet with vague categories like venue hold, catering estimate, family contribution, and down payment timing, I called her and read some of it out loud. He sent you a spreadsheet, she said. Yes. With your money listed like an unpaid invoice? Diane. No, I'm asking. Did he say, thank you, Mom, or did he say, here's where you fit in the budget? I rubbed my forehead. He's under pressure. That boy is confusing shame with ambition. He's my son. And he's treating you like an emergency fund with a pulse. I hated when she was right. A week before the dinner, Marcus came by for a short visit. He said he needed to borrow the tablet I kept around because his was acting up. Then later he left his own tablet on my kitchen counter by mistake. I noticed it after he drove away. I picked it up to set it aside and the screen lit up. I did not go looking at first. I want that understood. I was not trying to snoop through my adult son's private life. But the screen was already open to a message thread between him and Caroline, and my name was right there. Caroline. After the wedding we can manage how much access she has. I stood still. Marcus, I know. I just need her calm until the down payment clears. Caroline. Your mom is sweet, but she doesn't fit the image. Marcus. I'll handle her. My hands went cold. There were more messages above it. Caroline had written, we can include her without making her central to everything. Marcus had replied, exactly. She gets emotional and starts telling old stories. I don't want your parents thinking I came from chaos. I read that line 3 times. I don't want your parents thinking I came from chaos. The kitchen was silent except for the refrigerator humming. I looked around at the small ordinary things near me, the folded dish towel, the grocery list, the old mug Marcus had once made for me with a crooked painted heart. I had given him everything I could, and somewhere along the way he had renamed my sacrifice chaos. The tablet also had a wedding budget spreadsheet still open. Under one column there was a line that said Alex's contribution. Not Mom. Not Alexandria. Not even Marcus's mother. Just Alex's contribution, as if I were a bank transfer with shoes. Another tab showed an email thread with the subject line, down payment timing. I did not open every message. I saw enough. That night Marcus texted me. Marcus. Big dinner Saturday. Please don't bring up money stuff or old stories tonight. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, of course. Diane nearly yelled when I told her. Please tell me you're not still going to hand them that money. I'm going to dinner first. Why? Because I want to see if my son remembers who I am without needing a reminder. Diane got quiet. Then she said, bring the folder. What folder? The one I know you have. Receipts, bank stuff, texts. Bring it. You don't have to use it. But don't walk in defenseless. I did have a folder. Not because I had planned revenge. I kept records because when you spend years stretching every dollar, you learn to track where they go. I had tuition payment receipts with dates that matched deadlines. Bank transfer records. Student loan paperwork where I had signed as co-signer or guarantor, because Marcus was too young and too hopeful to understand what risk meant. A receipt for his first apartment deposit. Screenshots of texts where he wrote, I swear I'll pay you back when things settle. An email from him asking me not to mention the financial help in front of Caroline's parents because they wouldn't understand. I printed only what mattered. I did not want to bury him in paper. I wanted the truth to have clean edges. On Saturday, I ironed my dress twice. It was simple navy and fit me well. I carried the purse Marcus once told me looked too casual because it had a good zipper and enough room for the envelope. Before I left, I stood in front of the mirror and almost changed. Then I heard Diane's voice in my head. A boundary is not revenge. It's a locked door where people kept walking in without asking. The restaurant was the kind of place where the lighting made everyone look softer, and the menu had no prices on some versions. The host looked up as I walked in. "Are you with the Marcus party?" "I'm his mother." Something about saying it steadied me. He led me to a private dining room with a long table, white tablecloths, dim lighting, and a printed menu at each place. On a side table, there were framed photos of Marcus in his graduation gown, Marcus shaking hands with important-looking people, Marcus with Caroline holding his arm. I saw one photo of him as a boy, a school picture from when he still had a gap between his front teeth. I had given him that photo years ago. I wondered who had chosen to display it. Marcus saw me and came over quickly. "Mom," he said, kissing my cheek without really touching me. "You made it." I did. His eyes dropped to my purse for half a second. "You look nice," he said. "Thank you. Just remember, tonight is kind of important. A lot of people here have only seen the professional side of things." "The professional side of dinner?" His smile tightened. "Mom." "I know," I said. "Keep it simple." He exhaled like I had finally understood a language he had been trying to teach me. Caroline came over next. She hugged me lightly, her perfume clean and expensive. "Alexandria, I'm so glad you could come. Thank you for including me." There was a flicker in her eyes at that, something almost like guilt, but it passed quickly. "Of course." My place was near the far end of the table. Marcus sat in the center with Caroline on one side and Richard on the other. Evelyn sat close enough to lean into every conversation that mattered. Natalie, one of Marcus's polished friends, sat across from me. She smiled, introduced herself, and then spent most of the first course watching everyone else. Caroline noticed me looking at the seating. "We figured you'd be more comfortable over here," she said. "Comfortable," I repeated. "It's just easier for conversation." Of course. The first 20 minutes were all smooth surfaces. Wine poured. Silverware shifted. People asked Marcus about his next steps. He answered with polished confidence, using phrases I had never heard from him when he was younger. Strategic growth. Long-term positioning. The right circles. The right circles seemed to require me sitting near the edge of the room. At one point, Natalie asked me what Marcus had been like growing up. Before I could answer, Marcus looked down the table. "Careful," he said with a laugh that was not a laugh. "She has stories." "I do," I said. "But I'll choose a safe one." Few people smiled. I said, "He used to study at the kitchen table so late that sometimes he'd fall asleep with flashcards stuck to his cheek." There was a little polite laughter. It was warm, or it could have been. Marcus's face changed. "Mom, not tonight." The laughter died in small pieces. I set my fork down. "I wasn't trying to embarrass you, Marcus." Caroline touched his arm. "It's sweet." But her voice had warning in it, like sweetness was something best kept brief. Evelyn lifted her wine glass. "It must be amazing, Alexandria, seeing Marcus adapt so beautifully. Some people really do rise when given the right opportunities." I looked at her. "Marcus earned a lot." "Oh, absolutely," she said. "No one is suggesting otherwise. It's just impressive when someone can move so gracefully into polished circles." There it was again. Polished circles. Humble beginnings. Adjusting. Rising above. Words that sounded like compliments until you felt where they landed. Richard joined in. "A strong marriage needs shared values. Stability. Presentation. Honesty around finances." That last part almost made me laugh. Marcus gave Richard a confident nod. "I agree completely." I took a sip of water and said nothing. Dinner moved forward. Plates came and went. Marcus relaxed when I stayed quiet. I watched him charm the table. I watched Caroline glow beside him. I watched Evelyn look at him like an investment that had performed well. I watched Richard ask careful questions and approve of the answers. Then Marcus stood for a toast. He thanked his mentors. He thanked friends. He thanked Caroline for believing in him. He thanked Evelyn and Richard for welcoming him and showing him what it looked like to build with intention. Then he glanced at me. And of course, he said, my mom did what she could. A few people nodded politely. My mom did what she could. Not, I wouldn't be here without her. Not, she sacrificed for me. Not even thank you, Mom. Just a small line dropped at the edge of his speech like a coin in a jar. I felt something inside me go very still. Diane had asked me once what my limit was. I had told her I didn't know. Now I did. But I still waited. I wanted to see whether Marcus would come back to me after the toast. Whether he would squeeze my shoulder. Whether he would look embarrassed by his own smallness. He didn't. He sat down to applause and Caroline kissed his cheek. When the waiter brought the check in a leather folder, Richard chuckled. Well, Marcus, now that you've made it, I suppose little checks like this don't scare you anymore. Marcus reached for it with easy confidence. I can handle it. I looked at the leather folder and thought of every bill I had handled alone at a kitchen table after Marcus went to sleep. I thought of tuition deadlines, apartment deposits, loan forms, text messages sent late at night when Pride disappeared because he needed help. Natalie turned to me with a smile. You must be proud. I opened my mouth, but Marcus answered for me. She is, he said. She's proud, but she doesn't really understand this world. The table quieted, not completely but enough. I looked at my son. What world is that, Marcus? He gave me a look I had seen too often lately. Not anger exactly. Irritation. Like I was a problem he had predicted and still failed to prevent. Mom, he said. This is exactly why I asked you to keep things simple tonight. Caroline stared at her wine glass. Evelyn's mouth pressed into a careful line. Richard leaned back slightly. I placed my hand on the envelope inside my purse. Before I answer that, I said, I want you to be sure. Marcus's face flushed. Mom, please don't embarrass me. There it was. Not I'm sorry. Not that came out wrong. Not you do understand because you helped me get here. Just don't embarrass me. I pulled out the envelope and placed it on the table beside my plate. You're right, Marcus, I said. I don't understand your world. In my world, when someone carries you for years, you don't pretend you climbed alone. His eyes dropped to the envelope. Mom, he said quietly. No. You've had all night to correct yourself. I opened the envelope and removed the first few pages. Not all of them. I did not scatter papers across the table or make some dramatic show of it. I placed them neatly in front of me. This, I said, touching the first page, is a tuition payment you told Caroline came entirely from scholarships and your own hard work. Your hard work mattered. So did my money. Marcus went pale. Caroline looked at him. What is she talking about? He swallowed. It's not. This, I continued, placing the next page down, is the student loan paperwork I signed because you couldn't secure it alone at the time. Richard slowly took off his glasses. And this is the apartment deposit you told Caroline you handled yourself. Caroline's hand froze over her wine glass. You told me you paid that, she said. Marcus's voice dropped. Caroline, not here. I almost smiled. Not because anything was funny, but because the hypocrisy was so clean it shone. Not here. I said. You were comfortable correcting me here. You were comfortable minimizing me here. You were comfortable letting everyone at this table believe you built your life without help here. Evelyn said nothing. For once, her manners had no sentence ready. Marcus leaned toward me. Those were private matters. So was every dollar you asked me for, I said. Until you made my humiliation public. Natalie looked down at the documents, then at Marcus. Her expression had changed. The admiration was still there, but cracked down the middle. I placed one printed email on top. This is an email you sent me with the subject line, please don't mention this at dinner. In it you wrote, please don't bring up the help in front of Caroline's parents. They wouldn't understand. I looked at Evelyn and Richard. They understand now. Caroline pulled the paper closer before Marcus could stop her. Her eyes moved across the lines. Her face changed slowly, not into shock exactly, but into the look of someone realizing a lie had made her look foolish too. You told me your mother wanted to be involved because she was emotional, Caroline said. Marcus rubbed his face. I was trying to protect us. From what? She asked. The truth. He looked around the table, trapped by the audience he had chosen. I took out one more page. The wedding budget spreadsheet. I had highlighted only 2 lines. Family contribution. Alex's contribution. I laid it down. I found this on the tablet you left at my place, I said, along with messages about managing my access after the wedding. Caroline's face went white. Evelyn's eyes flicked toward her daughter. Richard's jaw tightened. Marcus stared at me. You went through my tablet? It opened to messages about me, I said. And I saw enough to understand that my money had a seat at your wedding. I did not. Caroline whispered. Marcus. He turned to her. I was going to handle it. That's what you wrote, I said. You would handle me. No one spoke. The silence was not dramatic. It was worse than that. It was practical. People were recalculating. I gathered the pages into a neat stack. I didn't come here to be thanked for every dollar, I said. I came here because I loved you. But I will not pay to be hidden. Marcus's voice sharpened. This was supposed to be an important night for me. It was, I said. And you used it to show me exactly where I stand. You made me look like a liar. I looked at him for a long second. No, Marcus. I corrected the lighting. His mouth opened then closed. I put enough cash on the table to cover my meal. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Inside I felt bruised. But the kind of bruise that comes after you stop letting someone hit the same place. I will not contribute to the wedding, I said. I will not contribute to the down payment. I will not cover any more hidden debt. And I will not attend any event where I am treated like something you have to explain away. Caroline's eyes filled, but she did not speak to me. She was looking at Marcus now like she had never seen him clearly before. Marcus stood halfway. Mom, don't leave like this. Picked up my purse. No, Marcus. You ruined this night when you decided the person who raised you was something to be ashamed of. The waiter stepped aside as I walked out. I remember that small kindness. He did not stare. He did not ask if I was okay. He simply moved like he understood that dignity sometimes needs a clear path to the door. Outside, the air felt cooler than it should have. I got into my car and sat there with both hands on the steering wheel. Then I cried. Not loudly. Not beautifully. Just the tired kind of crying that comes when your body catches up with what your mind already knows. Diane called before I even made it home. How bad? She asked. I used the folder. She exhaled. Good. I don't feel good. I didn't say it would feel good. I said it was right. My phone started lighting up before midnight. Marcus, you had no right. Marcus. Caroline is furious. Marcus. Please call me. Marcus, you made everything worse. Then, after 20 minutes. Marcus, we need to talk about the money. I stared at that one the longest. Finally, I replied. No. You need to talk about the truth. He called again. I let it ring. The next morning, I made coffee and opened my laptop. My hands shook a little as I typed, but my words did not. Marcus, I love you. That has not changed. But my money, my silence, and my presence are no longer available to support a version of your life where I am treated like an embarrassment. I will not contribute to the wedding. I will not contribute to a home down payment. I will not pay any debts you have hidden from Caroline or her family. I will not attend events where I am seated, introduced, or spoken to as if I am something to manage. I am your mother. I am not your backstory problem. I am not your emergency fund. I am not a detail to edit out. If you want a relationship with me, it will have to be honest. Mom. I read it 3 times before I sent it. I removed 2 sentences that were cruel because I did not want cruelty to be the thing that carried my truth. Then I sent it. After that, I did practical things. I called the bank. I checked account access. I spoke to someone about documents I had been meaning to update for years. I pulled out old files and made a list of what still connected me financially to Marcus. Some things could not be undone immediately, But more could be protected than I had allowed myself to admit. For the first time in years, I made decisions as if my future mattered too. The fallout came in pieces. Diane heard through someone who knew someone that the venue hold had been paused. Natalie quietly told people that Marcus's self-made story was not as clean as he made it sound. I did not ask for details, but details found me anyway. Caroline sent one message 3 days after the dinner. I'm sorry for my part in making you feel unwelcome. I knew Marcus wanted to limit certain things, and I went along with it because I cared too much about appearances. I didn't know about all the money. I should have asked better questions. I read it twice. Then I replied, "Thank you for saying that. I hope you ask them now." I did not comfort her. That was not my job. From what Marcus later told me, Caroline confronted him the night of the dinner after I left. Evelyn, who had spent months wrapping judgment and etiquette, apparently had very little to say once money and lies were sitting in the same room. Richard said, "A strong marriage needs honesty around finances. Only this time he was not performing for me." Caroline asked Marcus, "Did you let my family look down on your mother while expecting her to pay for our future?" Marcus told her, "I was trying to protect us." She said, "No, you were protecting your image." For once, someone else said the sentence I had been too tired to say. A week later, Marcus came to my door without calling first. I did not let him in immediately. That alone told me I had changed. He stood on the porch looking younger than he had at the dinner. Not like a child. Just like a man whose polish had worn thin. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Here," I said. He looked past me into the house, surprised. "You don't want me to come in?" "Not today." His face tightened, but he nodded. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You humiliated me." I almost closed the door. He saw it and quickly added, I know that's not the whole thing. It's not even the important thing," I said. He looked down. "Caroline might call off the wedding." "I'm sorry you're hurting." His eyes snapped up. "That's it. What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. I thought you'd care." That one hurt, but not enough to make me forget myself. "Marcus, I have cared so much that I let you turn me into a shadow in your life because I thought standing there quietly was still a kind of closeness. I am done confusing access with love." He swallowed. "I was ashamed," he said. I waited. "Not of you exactly." I said nothing. He corrected himself. "No, that's not fair. I was ashamed of what people would think. Of where I came from. Of not being enough for Caroline's family. And making me smaller helped?" His eyes filled, and for the first time in a long time, he did not look away. "It made me feel in control," he said. I nodded once. "At my expense." "Yes." That was the first honest word he had given me in months. But honesty after harm does not erase the harm. It only gives you something solid to decide from. "I'm not giving you money," I said. He closed his eyes. "I know. I'm not calling Caroline for you. I know. I'm not going to sit at another table where I have to earn basic respect." He nodded again. "I know." But he did not know. Not really. Not yet. A few weeks later he sent a long email. Not a quick apology typed in panic. A real one. Specific. Painful in places. He wrote about the dinner. About the speech. About saying I did what I could. About the messages on the tablet. The line that stayed with me was near the end. "I made you small because I was afraid people would see where I came from. I understand now that where I came from was you." I cried when I read that. Then I closed my laptop and made dinner. I did not respond that night. The old me would have rushed to soothe him. She would have written back immediately, telling him it was okay, that he was still my son, that we could move past it, that nobody was perfect. The old me knew how to protect Marcus from consequences better than she knew how to protect herself. I am trying not to be the old me anymore. When I finally answered, I kept it simple. "Marcus, I appreciate the apology. I believe you are beginning to understand what happened. I love you and I hope we can rebuild something honest. But I will not help pay for a life where I am hidden. I will not accept being spoken down to so you can feel taller. I will not pretend the past did not happen just because it makes your present look cleaner. I don't need to be worshipped. I need to stop being edited out of a life I helped build. Mom, The wedding did not happen on the original date. I heard the venue hold was cancelled. Caroline and Marcus did not break up immediately, but everything slowed down. Evelyn, according to Marcus, said they needed to reconsider the pace. Richard used the phrase character concerns. I would be lying if I said I did not feel a small sharp satisfaction at that. But mostly I felt tired. Tired of being grateful for crumbs of respect. Tired of watching my son perform independence with money I had quietly sent. Tired of being asked for help in private and treated like a liability in public. Marcus and I speak now, but not the way we used to. Maybe one day we will sit at a table and he will tell the truth without being forced to. Maybe one day I will meet him for dinner and he will not check my purse, my dress, my words, or the stories I carry. Maybe one day he will understand that love is not permission to erase me. But I am not waiting at the edge of his life anymore. The shoebox is still in my closet. The birthday cards are still there. The pancake notes. The school pictures. The little proof that before Marcus wanted a polished world, he had a mother who packed his lunches, signed his forms, answered his late-night calls, and believed in him before belief became fashionable. I still love my son. That is the part some people don't understand. Walking away from the table did not mean I stopped loving him. It meant I stopped offering myself up as the price of staying close. He said I embarrassed him in front of everyone. Maybe I did. But for the first time in years, I stopped being ashamed of the life I survived just so he could pretend he came from better. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.